Here.
Hello and welcome. You are watching Channel World Seed. We are live and direct from the World Seed Congress here in Lisbon, and in this session we will be looking at the role of biologicals and how to build clarity and guidance across regulations around the world. To discuss this, I am joined by experts from the working group inside ISF that is dealing with these issues. Rob Gaffney, who is Director for Global Marketing Seed Treatments at BASF, Rob Pronk, who is Global Marketing Manager and Global Regulatory Manager at Incotec, and joining us online, Christine Hazel, Global Regulatory Lead for Seed Applied Technologies at Corteva AgriScience. Welcome, Rob, and welcome to Christine online. Thank you for joining us. So I would like to get us started because we had this session already last year looking at biologicals, and Rob, you were with us in Istanbul. And I would like to just get a sense of where we're actually at in the evolution of biologicals applied to seed. So if I wander around the Congress here and the exhibition area where there are multiple exhibition stands, is there a chance that I'll be seeing much more offering to apply biologicals to seed? Has that evolved a lot in the last year, in the last 10 years? What is the state of play currently for this market?
Sure, absolutely, John. Thanks for the question. I think, yes, in general, you'll see more integration from various companies that are either for the first time offering biologicals, or depending on regions that they're in, they have offered biologicals for quite some time. So I think the evolution is just another year into it, and we feel really good in terms of our coordinating group and the efforts. I mean, we're ready to launch our guide to the biologicals, and we think certainly they're going to carry more of a prominent role as we move forward into the future.
So there are a broad range of biologicals performing different functions for agriculture, for farmers and growers. But I'm assuming as well that seed will only be one vehicle to carry those biologicals into the farm. I mean, there will be other ways of applying biologicals to crops. So do you see the seed sector as somehow competing in a way with other vehicles to carry biologicals into the farm? Is that a market dynamic, Rob?
I wouldn't say competing. In general, the application through seed treatment of any product, whether it's a chemical or a biological, makes sense because you're using a limited amount of product, and especially where the target of that biological is the root system, it makes perfect sense to apply it through a seed treatment. If you talk about anything that is a root fungi that you try to prevent, or nematodes, or if there's a systemic product that needs to be taken up by the root system, seed treatment is the way to go. At the same time, there will be challenges that the crop faces later during the cycle and that are above ground, and then it's got to be a foliar application. Nothing else really you can do. So it will be a combination. It's not a competition between methods. It's going to be several ways of application of those biologicals.
Okay, and so if I turn to you, Christine, do you think the seed industry understands well the benefits and limitations of biologicals? Is that something that is well understood across the sector?
So I think the understanding is pretty well understood. So biological seed treatment products can provide those benefits, as Rob mentioned, for both the plant and the soil health, similar to conventional seed treatment products. They protect early season pests when it's used as a seed treatment, early season pests like diseases, and also help support environmental stress and enhance the soil health so that we can get, or growers can get, stronger stand establishment. Similar to conventional seed treatment products, biologicals can also sustainably reduce the amount of products needed to protect the crop early in the season. That also results in reduced amounts of product on the acre itself, or the hectare itself, similar to seed treatment products. From a limitations perspective, one of the things with the guide that we're developing with ISF is to have the industry understand that biological products today, for the most part, would not replace completely traditional crop protection products, but rather biologicals would work together with chemical solutions to create a more resilient and productive agricultural system. So some products in the early days had variable performance. So this did create some skepticism in the category early, but the products today are improving in their performance. And that comes with a lot of additional product testing and making sure that the claims that the providers make on the products actually will perform as the growers expect. So that's increasing grower confidence.
So as Christine says that there is more confidence, more product testing, the quality of the products are improving on biologicals. If I turn to you, Rob, do you see that the seed companies are looking at integrating more than biologicals within their own processes, a little bit like what we saw with synthetic chemicals, where typically companies would integrate both the seed part and the pesticide part, the crop protection part? Do you see something similar happening with biologicals specifically?
Oh yes, I see that, and again, as we look back, biologicals have been utilized around the globe for even centuries when it comes to inoculants and rhizobium bacteria. But when it comes to a true biological, depending on what pest it's attacking, whether it grows along with the root system, protect against nematodes or things of that nature, it's coming along. And in some areas of the world, those type of biologicals have been in the marketplace now for about 10 years. So then we move to other areas of the globe that I would classify as emerging, particularly under areas that have more restrictions to synthetic chemistries. They're looking for other ways and tools in the toolbox. So that's where these biologicals are becoming more prominent. And companies are going to be integrating those more so. And the key would be education and making sure that the growers ultimately who are paying for this have a good return on the investment.
Do you agree, Rob, that there's more integration, or is there also then a space for very specialized companies looking at very specialized types of biologicals as well?
Absolutely, it's both. I think there's a big appetite of combinations of both biologicals and chemistry. At the same time, we need to make sure as well as possible that those combinations are viable and that there's no incompatibility issues. Already we're seeing that with chemistry, that you need to take care that there's no issues if you combine products with biologicals, and there's a wide range of biologicals that can be used, not only microbials, but it could be anything from humic acid or proteins or whatever. They need to be compatible with any type of seed treatment and chemistry that you're applying. So indeed, there's going to be quite a bit of work, and that's already being carried forward to make sure that there's compatibility and that the efficacy doesn't get lost during the application period. And that brings a responsibility for all players in the seed industry.
So we're looking to a future where a seed will potentially be carrying a combined set of characteristics on top of its own genetic characteristics, whether these are chemicals or biologicals, a broad range of applications. And we see that there is still a way to go to educate even the industry itself. But I would like to push it even further and turn to policymakers as well. So, Rob, do you think that policymakers understand well all these different layers of complexity of what a seed can carry?
So I think the policymakers, they have a good understanding of the direction of travel, if you will, of where these things are headed. Probably a limitation, though, with the policymakers is some of the variables. Stabilization, is the product stable, not only in the jug, but on seed, and for how long? Because some crops, they're treated 6 months to a year in advance before planted. So they're probably less familiar with those kind of things and the nuances that it takes. A lot of testing has to go on to make sure that these things actually do and perform according to the claims that are made. So, but in general, policymakers are understanding the direction of travel, and I think are becoming very supportive. But we've got a long ways to go to try to make sure that we properly educate and extend the conversation beyond.
Because I imagine that for policymakers, they could see biologicals as alternatives to synthetic chemicals. Maybe not always rightly, but at least I imagine that would be a goal for policymakers, right, to potentially get farmers and growers to switch. But Rob, do you see that regulation is somehow pushing biologicals or more biologicals into the market, or is it more of a simple market decision that farmers and growers themselves are simply looking for those alternatives, turning to biologicals as real alternatives on the ground?
Well, actually, if you look at the push towards using biologicals, if you look whether it's from a regulatory perspective, or whether it's from governments, or whether it's from the seed sector, or farmers, or even consumers, everyone is happy to have biologicals used more and more. There's little discussion about that. At the same time, those products need to be both efficacious as well as economically viable. So I think there's little discussion about the willingness of the market to accept these products and to go this route, and both from policymakers as well as consumers, farmers, seed sector, everyone's willing to go there, but there need to be enough efficacy of those products, and there need to be an economical viable model as well. Otherwise it doesn't work. So I think market is ready, whatever stakeholder you take, and we need to put our best foot forward to make sure that we've got good products, and then I think the integration of biologicals will be relatively smooth.
So there seems to be a market demand, as you outline. On the other hand, I imagine that there might be different market access rules, and that might also orient, farmers and growers to go in one direction or another. Maybe it's just simply quicker to get access to biologicals. Christine, is that actually the case? I mean, is it easier to register a biological product than it is a synthetic chemical? And do regulations make it somehow more or less complex to apply then that biological to seed? I mean, is that seen as an extra step on the approval process?
So if we start with the ease of registration, I think the regulatory landscape is evolving very quickly, and it's becoming clearer in many regions. We talked about this last year in Istanbul. And having that regulatory clarity is going to be really important to allow that freedom to operate for the seed industry, the biological product providers, so that we can get these innovations to growers' hands. So when we talk about regulations, the categories of biologicals are important. So we have biopesticides, we have biostimulants, and biofertilizers as key categories. The biopesticide registration requirements are fairly well established, and easier may not necessarily be the case, but the requirements are very similar to conventional pesticides. But for some regions, some countries, the timelines might be shorter. One of the key points to tack on to what Rob just said is efficacy is a key data requirement that regulators are looking for. So that product has to perform the way you claim it to perform in order for it to be registered. So that stringency on efficacy requirements is becoming stronger. For the biostimulant category, some of these regulations are still evolving. For example, the US EPA does not have a formal category or a formal regulatory framework for biostimulants, but it does recognize it as a separate category, and so those biostimulants can be registered at the state level. Also in Asia Pacific, some countries have a lack of clarity while it's well understood in other countries. So it's still evolving. And when we talk about the complexity of the application, that's covered within the registrations of the product. So the product performance, but also how that product is applied. So we want to make sure that we've got good understanding of the international movement of treated seed, that those registrations, where the seed will be exported to, are covered. So it's no different in its complexity compared to conventional seed treatment products.
And for some of the other types of categories, then do you see differences between the categories?
So between the categories with respect to complexity, not necessarily. Once it's established and defined, this is a biofertilizer that is registered under those biofertilizer or fertilizer laws. The biostimulant category is the one that's a little complex. In some regions, it falls under a fertilizer regulation. In some jurisdictions, it falls under a pesticide regulation. So that complexity is just in the understanding of what is the regulatory requirements in each jurisdiction and making sure that you're registering it appropriately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even just understanding what is the exact function of the project. What is it exactly doing? Because I imagine that definition can enter into some gray areas potentially.
Well, even the product performance can be complex. So if you have a product that includes both a stimulant and a nutrient, then which category do you register it under?
Right.
And does the regulatory framework allow that to happen? So these are still areas of navigation that creates that complexity that I think with our education and the guide that we're developing is to help maybe clarify some of these complexities as the regulations evolve.
So I'd like to just stay a little bit longer on this because you've already alluded to different sets of regulation around the world, and I think that in these kind of ISF congresses, that's quite a difficult thing to apprehend, right? Because there are so many jurisdictions that are trying to deal with this, and I would like to try and get a more practical understanding of this interaction between a market demand for biologicals and a regulatory process that allows those biologicals to enter the market on seed, and how that interaction actually happens in real practical examples. And so I would like you to maybe just give us an example, Christine, of where a regulatory process had a very direct impact on the market for biologicals.
Well, being in Europe, one of the prime regulatory policy decisions is well understood by the market, and that is reducing the amount of conventional crop protection chemistries. So more and more products are being removed from the market, they're being banned or withdrawn. So that pressure in of itself has created a market demand for safer products, so safer conventional chemistry, but also it opens that window for biological products that are perceived as more natural and potentially safer. But again, the data requirements need to demonstrate that safety. So that part doesn't go away in this new evolving space. But just that one policy decision alone has really helped open up that market space for new innovations, especially in this biological space.
Okay, thank you. And Rob, could you also maybe give a very specific example where you see regulation somehow orienting or pushing the market in a certain direction towards biologicals?
Well, I think when it comes to sustainability and discovery of new products, I think certainly with clarity on regulatory paths, what it's going to take to get those brought into the market. Because at the end of the day, those manufacturers that are trying to develop these are trying to look for how's it going to protect that seed investment, whether it's pest or whether it's stress mitigation, things of that nature, whether it's enzymes or what have you there. We're kind of at an inflection point to where those companies that desire to offer an integrated pest management program, the biologicals, I think, are a natural fit for that. And, it'll take some time, but still yet, when it comes down to the claims that whatever these are and whatever category they fall under, do they do what they say they do? And are growers getting a return for what they've invested in?
Mm-hmm. And does that option where governments could see biologicals as a useful ally to make agriculture more sustainable, I mean, would that go hand in hand then potentially with subsidies being oriented towards biologicals over synthetic chemicals, for instance? I mean, is there also like a financial incentive?
Oh, I think there is a financial incentive. As far as subsidies and all, I can't address that right now, but it would be such that if there's a value in terms of the return and what is it doing no matter what the crop, if it is sustainable. Now, from my perspective and biologicals that have been utilized for at least 10 years, what are they bringing to the table in terms of a value proposition? Are they bringing something more than without? And what we have found so far is the biologicals is simply like a tool, an extra tool in the toolbox that generally can complement synthetic chemistries. And I think we still have some work to do as to whether they can truly replace synthetics. But I think, as Christine has alluded to, in some areas of the world, with all the pressures that are upon us with regulations, some of our synthetics are being regulated out. So we certainly have an opportunity in front of us to develop these kind of biologicals that, one, perform, and two, can be accepted, and three, follow proper stewardship protocols, and last but not least, safe to you and I and the environment. Mm-hmm. So we still have some work to do, but we're certainly in the right trajectory.
Okay. And Rob, maybe also just a very specific example where you see regulation somehow pushing or helping to encourage biologicals into the market.
Well, if you look at the market acceptance and the market acceptance of these products, there are very clear examples of products that are being used very widely. If you look at bacillus on corn, if you look at rhizobia on soybean, those are examples. They are being used already for maybe decades even. So there's little issue with acceptance of biologicals if the efficacy is there, if the benefit's clearly seen, and if the cost benefit is recognized and appreciated. Those products are very easily adopted and accepted by the market. And in regions like the US or Brazil, you see very, very clear examples of products being accepted by the market, and it doesn't even require regulatory push or whatever. It will go by itself. So I think the market is absolutely ready to go for biologicals and widespread use, and we simply have to make sure that we're able to apply them effectively, that they are compatible, and then this path will go forward, no doubt.
On the efficacy of the products, do you see a link between the regulation and establishing efficacy? I mean, does regulation give extra confidence to farmers and growers that these products are efficient, or is it more just a question of seeing the trials and seeing the demonstration on field, and you don't actually need the regulator to confirm that these products are efficacious?
It's a bit of both. It depends a bit on the type of biological that we're looking at. If it's biopesticides, it's pretty clear. There's regulation everywhere in each continent that will require data to be submitted, and it's not that much different from chemistry. So there's regulation that will make sure that efficacy is there, that's proven benefit. If it's about a few other products, it will be different, and then it's a lot on farmers as well as seed companies, as seed application companies, as well as the producers of those biologicals, to make sure that the complete value chain demonstrates the efficacy, and also, to be honest, to make sure that the farmers, the people that use those biologicals, are educated about what to expect from those products, and where it will work and can work, and where it will not, and to be clear about that.
So we come to the clarity point and trying to explain what is and what is not. And so ISF, and Christine mentioned it earlier on, I mean, you have been working you in particular, this group, has been working on a guide for biologicals, or on biologicals on seeds. Christine, what are exactly then your expectations with this guide? I mean, what is the ambition that you have? Why did you produce it?
So when we started this project, we first needed to decide our target audience and what did we want to say. And so we did land on our target audience of being the seed sector, consumers, regulators, policymakers, so that we could help explain, define what biological products are and how they're used on seed. And so that, similar to our treated seed story communication package, have a consistent message about the value, benefit, and the complexities around the regulations of biological products on seed. So it's to clarify and educate those stakeholders, to explain the demonstration of value, both to the plant and growing the crops, but also to sustainability, as Rob mentioned earlier, the safety to the environment, to consumers. We want to help support regulations, so let the national and regional seed associations take the message and build that understanding with their key stakeholders in the region, and really engage those stakeholders. So do the education, do that alignment, and help spread the word about the benefits and values of biological seed treatment products.
Because one of the things that Rob mentioned a little bit earlier, and I'd like also the other Rob to react to that, is on the claims aspect. Because as a company, when you're making a claim that a product will perform in a certain manner, you are to some extent putting your reputation on the line.
Absolutely.
And it seems to me that if biologicals being applied to seed are then carrying claims that may not be possible to achieve in the field, for various factors that are influencing that field, in the end, the seed is also then linked to that claim. Even if the claim is on the biological, it will still be the seed that is linked to that. And so I'm just wondering, do you imagine there is some sort of a collective responsibility and maybe a reputational risk for the seed sector that some of these claims may impact negatively on the whole seed sector if performed badly?
There's a responsibility to make sure that both from the producers of the biologicals as well as the seed industry and seed enhancement companies to make absolute sure that the claims that are being made, that they pull through, that are being realized, while understanding that you need to educate farmers and do not pose any unreasonable expectations, and help them understand that some of those biologicals are a bit more complex than chemistry. Where chemistry typically, a fungicide typically will work, for a biofungicide you need to be a bit more cautious and make sure that it's applied appropriately, shelf life challenges, soil conditions, etc. So, and it's very important that the complete value chain make sure that they do not over-promise things, because then indeed there's a reputational risk for the complete value chain, and that might hinder the progress and the acceptance of biologicals. So yes, there is, without any question, a shared responsibility for the complete value chain, and we're trying to make sure that we keep up to that responsibility.
Yeah, and I imagine that's a very important message to seed companies, that are working with biologicals on their treatments. Their claims might have an impact on the broader sector, so to be careful. Rob, maybe just then to finish, to reflect back on the work that you've carried out on this guide. So just as a quick question, how long did it actually take to produce the guide itself? What are we talking? How many, is it months, is it years of work?
So as I reflect back to this, I think this all started about 3 years ago in our Seed-Related Innovation Coordinating Group. We've had a couple of changes of people and contributors since then, but we're now here to a point where we're going to launch it. And I would just say this, first of all, thanks to ISF for providing such a wonderful platform for outreach and education to drive an important aspect in the agricultural production of the future. Certainly want to thank Rob. He was integral in providing input and insight. Christine, that was part of our core work group, but our broader coordinating group is about 20 members, and you can just imagine trying to get folks on there with input and agreeing in the right position. It took a little bit of time, but I'm really proud of the efforts that everybody put into it. So I believe the collective work that this committee has put together on behalf of ISF, it's going to move biologicals merely from promising to implementing as practical. Now, the work is just beginning. We're not going to back off. We're going to have this guide available soon, not only on ISF website, but we'll have information available that companies, and I guess at the end of the day, growers need to hold our industry accountable when it comes to these biologicals. It sounds easy, but one biological may work differently depending on the environment in Latin America versus North America or even Europe. But at the end of the day, it's all about strengthening our communication and driving a path forward that all of us collectively can win and do the right thing for growers to succeed and help do their part to feed the world.
Thank you so much. I think on that note, I think we can close this session. I like the idea of having farmers and growers holding you accountable, and I guess the next big priority is to get this guide into their hands and ensure that there's this very strong dialogue between farmers and growers and the seed sector. The Robs, thank you so much for having been with us. Christine, thank you for having woken up extremely early from the US to be with us this morning online. For those of you following the next steps of the program, next up at 11, we have a session on leading breeding, policies that power innovation with Bayer in the plenary room. And straight after at 12, you can join the family business luncheon in the Mera restaurant. So thank you for attending. Enjoy the rest of the Congress. Bye-bye.